if you're an investor looking for a hot sector, from a story written by Aaron Griffith and published in the New York Times a couple of days ago, you'd think that early stage fintech is a place you'd want to look. And this first slide captures the headline from the story, and the headline is provocative, and it seems that it's consistent with the new strategy at the New York Times to kind of try to co-opt or take over what used to make BuzzFeed Media what it was and actually brand it as the Gray Lady. So we have a very splashy, outrageous headline: "The startup enemies of Wall Street are booming." But a deeper dive into this story should provide you with some points to think about before you conclude that the companies that are mentioned by Ms. Griffith in this story are worth your close study and scrutiny. That is, if you're not a firm believer in greed as a long-term driver that will consistently deliver the results that you want. So let's take a look at this. So now the next screen scrape from here is actually one that actually deepens this controversy, and that is this one here, where two companies are mentioned. And the quote from Ms. Griffith's article is, "Even tiny financial startups that have not formally introduced their products, such as Zeller, which will offer banking services to businesses, and Sivo, which is building lending software, have raised millions of dollars and been valued at 9-digit sums." So let's take a look at this. Actually, Zeller, and as I've stated here in the screen scrape, actually this description inflates what Zeller delivers. And I'm going to show in the next slide that the offer from Zeller is actually more pedestrian. The first point is the Zeller market is mentioned by Zeller to be Australia. I don't see mention on the Zeller site of the United States as a target market at this point. And two, the target businesses are retail and customer facing, restaurants, and the like. And three, the solution is not quite the sexy or all-encompassing banking services to business that Ms. Griffith mentions in the story. The solution, as we'll see in a second with the next slide, is a Square or PayPal competitor, something that runs on your phone, might be a portable hardware device, but let's take a look at that. So this, number one, this story, which kind of sensationalizes the topic, the detail of it starts off with some exaggeration of what these two companies do. So now let's switch over and actually take a look at what Zeller promotes on its website. And so what it is something that they've branded as an EFT-POS machine. Electronic funds transfer point of sale machine. Well, yes it is. Here in the States we have Square, PayPal, Zelle, and others, meaning apps on mobile phones that are EFT-POS, render the mobile device into an EFT-POS. Not much sexy about that. Now, why would a company like that magnetize, a company like Zeller, magnetize 9-figure venture capital money? I sniff some greed at work here. So let's take a look at it. Let's take a dive in. And actually, let's take that dive with actually the second company that's mentioned. And the second company that's mentioned by Ms. Griffith is Sivo, or Sivo. So Sivo here puts a tantalizing tidbit on its website: 17% to 30%. Average interest rates paid by Fintechs in emerging markets. Well, any student of history, and I myself just got done reading a book on J.P. Morgan written by Ron Chernow, would note that raping and pillaging emerging markets with exorbitant interest rates doesn't deliver over the long term. So should 30% average interest rates be the objective? And what is the social cost related to that? And even forgetting the social cost for a minute, let's just not moralize and just forget the social cost, but let's just continue on the greed theme. How long can I be greedy and afford to cash in on those kinds of interest rates? My argument would be not very long. And I would actually add as a reference here another story, curiously enough, published by the New York Times. And that is this story over here. Using shame, lending apps in India squeeze billions out of the desperate. That's the next screen scrape. And the question I have to ask here is, did the editorial team at the New York Times present a consistent message? From this headline, it doesn't look like it does. If hand A, if my right hand is saying, wow, these people are going to disrupt a market and they're wonderful revolutionaries, and on my left hand I'm saying, using shame and actually diving in and providing an investigative report about how the collection operation in India amounts to going to your relatives and actually shaming you in front of your relatives that you weren't good enough to pay your bills, something is not working correctly here. So the conclusion here is that the premise of the story seems to sacrifice providing the reader with a truly useful lens as to what's going on with these businesses at the expense of sensationalized prose. And I'd sum it up here with the last comment in this last slide, that Ms. Griffith says the banks are extremely vulnerable because they have not kept up with what customers expect, said Mark Goldberg, an investor at the venture capital firm Index Ventures. And my comment is, they have not kept up because the US OCC and other regulators constrain them. Might fintechs breaking the rules enjoy no more than a short lifespan? Investors should carefully consider this before jumping in. And they're not, I mean, with the current administration in Washington, it doesn't take a lot of thinking to surmise that some of the elected officials might not look favorably at 30% interest rates and might move very quickly through the Federal Trade Commission, etc., to put a bridle on that kind of activity. If you want to look into the market, fine. But let's not sensationalize and make very glamorous an activity which might be boiling down to moving fast and breaking things, where the thing that gets broken are very stretched consumers. The other comment too here, it's not really a question of competing with established banks. It's more a question of how are these businesses servicing market segments that are not getting what they want from the existing solutions. My name is Ira Michael Blonder. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called IMB Enterprises Incorporated. That my company is an advisory firm. We work with early stage C-level contacts at enterprise software businesses. We've been doing that since 2011 and have very recent experience in that space. I'm also an investor and looking out with a keen eye to stories like this one. Please visit our blog, https://www.imbenterprises.com/our-blog/ or my personal Twitter page @MikeTheBebop. Speak with you soon.